Yeah, but maybe you know some. We have really world famous jazz musicians like Tomasz Stańko, trumpet player, like Adam Makowicz, the piano player, like Michael Urbaniak, violinist, like Krzysztof Seifert. He also violinist. He died already many years ago, but he was very young and talented and starting to build his career. But he died. And who else? Urszula Dudziak also. Many musicians are really famous in Europe and I think in States, but more in New York.
Well, one of the things that always impressed me about their school, first time I went, the level of playing was amazingly high. You had your school was going on before North Texas, right, at the same time?
Some of the teachers.
No, I mean the length of time, not the long history of the school.
I don't know how.
It's been many years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been many years. So the students, and it takes 80 years, is that right, or 60 a year? You accept the students who go to school. How many students do you accept a year?
On the year, like 15.
15?
15, yeah, but it's the vocal class, like 3 or 4 persons. Like composing arrangement, it's a separate thing. It's like also 3, 4 persons. And then instruments, piano, bass, drums, yeah, everyone.
One person.
For a year, yeah.
So the competition is very high. And then this last May, when I was there for their jazz competition, we're judging all these people playing. They played great. Even the ones who didn't come close to winning played really well. I mean, the winners were very high level, and it shows you that the country's kind of small, small compared to ours. So you have all these people interested in playing music, in this case, specifically jazz music, and he's right, it's like, what are they going to do? The same questions you're asking yourself. What are you going to do when you get out of here? What kind of importance will you have in your career in music and what you're going to do? So there's a lot going on in this little place.
Yeah, but now, as I said, there's a bigger number of the school, of the jazz department, which shows that music is still growing. Growing. So.
And you have the whole Europe. Now Europe has changed too. When I first went to Poland, you weren't part of the EU.
No. Yeah.
And so now it's like, it's not the United States of Europe, but it's kind of. So they go across the borders. There's a lot easier interaction between the different countries. So they have different people moving around like we do. And so it's a lot different, but it's pretty exciting.
Unfortunately, some students goes
other places.
To Denmark, to Paris, France, or some Holland, Amsterdam, whatever. But what to do?
Now, do many of the people from the other countries come back to your country?
Also, yeah.
Yes.
Not too many, but yeah. Some
is
from
the language,
Ukraine.
Is the language a challenge because you have the classes are in Polish?
No, we can switch like in English classes. So I mean. It's not perfect, sorry, but
no, it's good. Now, why don't you tell me a little bit about like when you were, I don't know if it was you or your brother were saying about when a new record would come out when you were younger, when your dad was playing, how they would all come together to listen to a recording and then go home.
Yeah. I a little bit. I was just talking about this atmosphere of 50s, 60s, like meeting people to talk about jazz, to not feel this communism sad times, to be friendly, to listen to the music, to try to play like music on the record, and it grows, So, I think that me and my brother, we start to play music, jazz music, because our father was some collection of records. That's why we started to listen to Oscar Peterson, Count Basie, Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, this kind of stuff. It was not very modern. It was like swing and a little bit bebop. So this sort of jazz. But I mean, I loved it. So it started. Yeah. We had this time was a lot of. It was not a lot of clubs, like night clubs, but it was not really jazz clubs. It was just clubs, place to meet people and to talk, drink of course, and play together.
So when you were listening to music, then it's interesting that at the time you were listening, it's the same music that we would listen to here. Just that it was in a little different atmosphere, a little different background. It was more cherished maybe because it was hard to get a hold of.
Yeah, but now it's changed. The young people don't listen to the, you know, Oscar Peterson, Brad Mello. Yeah, maybe Brad Mello and something more.
Right.
I don't understand that. Everyone wants to be so modern, so play to so complicated music. But I should listen to Wynton Kelly. Wynton who? It's sad. I mean, it's sad because, you know, the tradition is very important. It's essential of this.
Well, knowing where you come
I know
from.
the story. Michael Brecker he asked me, "Who are you listening to?" And he said, "I was listening to Lester Young and this kind of."
Well, it's funny, when I'm talking to better players, who do you listen to? And they talk about, I listen to Hank Mobley, or, Ben Webster, and they're going, I was listening to you. He goes, no, listen to these guys.
Yes, exactly.
Because that's who I listen to, and that's how you grow.
Also Herbie Hancock. Right. Oscar Peterson, Bill Evans, and Wynton Kelly was my idols.
Do you folks have any questions? We're just like have an open discussion about different things.
No, I would just comment on that. That was the same thing Ben and I were talking about yesterday.
What's that?
That most, as young players, many of us don't listen to much of the older recordings. Even if we're comparing to some of the young players that are here, I know many of them don't listen to, say, like you said, Oscar Peterson or Art Tatum or Fats Waller or James P. Johnson, any of them.
We all went. I think he's a little different. We went down because his dad was into music and he had the music there. In my case, I was listening to swing music from big bands because my parents, that's what they listened to. And then when I got to Jamie, when I started taking lessons from him at 17, 18 years old, then it was like he had all these records everywhere. Remember Jamie's basement?
Yeah.
It's all these records, and there were no such thing as CD and a cassette. That was the new innovation. And so when I'd leave a lesson, he'd go, here, and he'd give me 5 to 10 records to go home and listen to. So I immediately went home and taped them and gave them back to him. So I started listening that way, and then you kind of backfill, what you didn't have because there's someone who's wiser than you, whether it's a father or a teacher or a friend, says, no, you need to check out so-and-so. And when you do that, then the process starts to grow, but it's not uncommon. Although now, look how easy it is to hear music. You press a button on your computer or your iPhone or whatever phone you got, and you can hear all the stuff that we used to steal because we couldn't find the recordings. Now it's available like that.
Yeah, but this kind of YouTube or whatever, it's great because you can listen everything, whatever who was played already. But sometimes the young people, if they put music from YouTube, they don't know who is playing, for example, bass, who is playing drums, who was for Atlantic Record or Verve or Blue Note, which year, who was
You understand what he means on that?
Yeah.
All the information's not there.
Just I put John Coltrane plays my favorite things or whatever. But who's playing piano? I don't know. I don't care even.
Yeah.
So it's sad. I mean, and I had a record like the big one. I read everything. Wow, year, when, who's playing, which. Everything, yeah?
Because we used to get records, you would get Atlantic or Impulse or Blue Note, and each one had a special look. Now
and special sound.
Yeah, special sound. That's right. You had a look and a sound, and you get the record. It's like a piece of art. Some of the artwork on the covers of it. Now it's kind of jive. People put their, but back then you knew what Blue Note looked like. You didn't know it was Blue Note. You look at the covers, like that's got to be Blue Note because of the artwork.
Yeah.
Or Impulse had a certain look, and Atlantic had it, or Riverside. All these things, and it was all part of it. You read about it, it was a history. Now you can't get that unless somebody puts it up online. It's really important.
Because this additional information makes you are watching for the music from the highest level. You know how to put in the history. It's 50s or 40s, it's bebop or hard bop or modal or whatever. Not just one tune.
Any other questions or something? We'll keep talking.
So what were some of your influences as far as
on the beginning I started from a big Oscar Peterson, but he was too fast for me, so I changed for Bill Evans. So I love Bill Evans. And then the early McCoy with playing with the
his trio or something.
I Yeah, trio, but on the, also on the, with the John Coltrane.
Yeah.
But then, of course, the Korea. Yeah, I had many. It changed. You know, it's like waving. You cannot. I say to students sometimes, you cannot eat pork every day for 2 years. Sometimes you want to eat some sweet or to change, just to change. You know.
Variety. You need to have that variety. And each one, I mean, to think that...
Keith Jarrett also, yeah.
Yeah, I think that someone like Keith Jarrett or Chick Corea wasn't influenced by Oscar Peterson or Bill Evans is folly, which means that you will need to be influenced by listening to the same sources they have. The same thing we talked about a minute ago. It's really important. Any other questions before we go on to something else?
Can we just hear you play solo, Peter?
Yeah, well, before he does that, let's talk about, we just played Stella. We hadn't played together. We only played 1 or 2 tunes in Poland, right?
This year, yeah.
It was
10 years ago we played more.
We played much more, but we haven't played together. So the interesting thing is, for me, to sit down, and I think the really cool thing is that we speak the same language, music, and we kind of speak the same language, English. I don't speak any Polish. I mean, it's, you know. So, but we can sit down and play.
I'll teach you some
Yeah, you
words. Yeah, of course.
And, but when we're playing, it's like we're just doing it. You know, I mean, I wasn't really thinking. I was trusting him to be at a certain place, and he would do something, and I would go with him, and then he would go with me. And I think that's what it's all about. You practice all those years and do all that stuff to be able to do that. I mean, that's, you know what I'm getting at? You know, we were talking about playing Stella, you know, John, about it. You know, I was thinking about you as we were going through it. I went, oh, I see what John's talking about, but I don't think about it when I'm playing. You know what I'm getting at? It's like how to connect all those ideas, or take an idea. And he was doing something that was cool toward the end, where he was going up, and I went, how long is he going to go with this? You know, and you just do that. And after it takes all those years of practice to let go. So, yeah, you want to play a solo piece? Oh, come on, come on, anything.
Yeah, of
We'll
course.
play together again. Play something else.
Very early to me, but. maybe for you, some information about jazz in Europe, in different countries, because it depends in which country it's developed in different ways. For instance, Great Britain, like England, I mean, first because maybe it's the island, but also some of the związki zawodowe.
Labor parties or
No, the
society labor.
didn't let the musicians from abroad play.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's why the British
More isolated.
yes, it's very British. I mean, British jazz is very British. It's not influences from States. I mean, yeah, it's like very British. Different in France, where is, as you know, some American musicians goes to Paris. That's why the jazz in France is more American, like swing, blues, you know. Dexter Gordon was living there.
Right.
Powell was
yeah.
many. Also Denmark. Yeah, the Scandinavian also is some kind of different ways. But some of American musicians are still living in Sweden, Norway. But this country are special because of nature, of a lot of lakes, open air, and that's why the music from the Scandinavia is very soft, like ECM. You know the label ECM music. It's not swing. No blues element. Yeah, it's like Garbarek. You know Jan Garbarek, tenor player, very famous in Europe.
So if you hear the sound in here, that you would recognize, oh, that's who they are.
What I want to say, the place where the music is growing. I mean, the music. It depends. I mean, color of music, mood of music depends
What he's saying is that the society and the location, the geographical location, influences the way the music comes out. If you're isolated or keep yourself somewhat, closed in, then it's one thing. If you're more embracing, like the French and a lot of the other European countries,
also the nature. I mean,
then the landscape,
has
a way of influencing as well because of how things are. And I think he's exactly right.
We had just in Katowice. We had a workshop of one bass player. I don't know his name. It was one with one great player, and he said he came to New York from the Philadelphia, and he said that his first couple months he was exactly lost when he was playing with the drummers because there was a rush, everything. Because the mood of New York was completely different than the Philadelphia. I asked him, but Philadelphia is still a very big city. But he said, no, but it's like many villages putting together. And New York is like on this small area, everything is packed full. And so this atmosphere of the, of the New York is like, he said, I was always late because, yeah, you know what I mean? Sorry, my English is not perfect. Try to get my thoughts on my lips.
Well, I think what he's trying to say is when the European musicians, whether from Poland or different places, they really try to absorb this. They're really sensitive to that because your life has been that way. Everybody's been kind of separate. Now they're blending in together and the music is blending in.
So, what else?
What about any questions about what he just played on his solo?
Well, it's completely different from the duo, because I can tell that when you all play duo, that one sounds very heavily Bill Evans influenced stylistically versus what you just played. I actually looked at my finger on where you were coming from stylistically. It kind of sounded like a slower Oscar Peterson-ish style of playing. You make it a little bit of Kenny Barron in there.
Yeah, and Barron also, I love him, yeah. Yeah, also Nat King Cole. I love Nat King Cole playing piano.
Hey, your lines seem very rhythmic in place of, instead of you like walking the bass line though, as you get towards yourself, your lines stay more rhythmic in the aspect of keeping things moving.
Because solo piano, as you know, is a really challenge for pianists. You don't have the bass player, you don't have the drummer, all by yourself. And so many students ask me how to play solo. Because a lot of jazz piano playing like this. Left hand is rootless chords like, and the right hand is like 8. Yeah, but it sounds good when you are playing with bass and with the depth, because but you have to play your left hand walking or half walking or straight piano or many possibilities, but you have first to hear it from the records and listen to Bill Evans, to Oscar Peterson.
Yeah, having the freedom of playing, I obviously don't play piano, but having the freedom of playing by yourself, when I do that with my horn, the freedom of being on your own creates even more problems because you have all these choices. And then you have to come up with other things like, now I'm totally free. I can either stay in time or not stay in time. I can stay in a harmony, not stay in a harmony.
Yeah.
I can be, it's like, what do I do? And that means, so freedom can be more restricting than the freedom itself. It's a weird combination. And as you,
It's like the availability.
Yeah, it's just,
Being
it's like, okay, all of a sudden it's like,
too much.
wow, what's going on? And so when you're a pianist, you have that whole tradition behind you too. Going on.
So how do you approach your playing solo?
Approach means what?
How do you go about playing solo? What do you conceive of or think of?
I mean, the first category is to sound good. I mean, you can play just 2 notes, but it should be like that. Audience can feel that it doesn't missing anything. Not like I'm playing, but you can hear that it's missing bass, or so. Harmony, melody, rhythm, time, and sound together to put together. I cannot exactly say because when you play, you don't think. Yeah, you just play.
Well, let's make this question more specific. Who have you, in your practice time, tried to pattern, or what persons have you tried to pattern your solo playing after, to the point that now it becomes just intuitive?
I mean, I don't like to practice patterns. Not really.
No, I don't think he means patterns. He's meaning like, who's been your ideal when you listen to solo piano player? Who's been the person or persons that you find most attractive in listening to and trying to play yourself?
I mean, as I said, I heard Art Tatum and Oscar Peterson playing solo piano, but it was killing me. I mean, like it was. But then maybe you know the record of Bill Evans, Alone. Beautiful record. He's not playing very fast and I mean too many. He's playing exactly notes which are the right place around the right time, and the sound and color, and so probably when I listen to this, I start to thinking about solo, how to play solo, to play rich sound, texture to reach. So then I thought about how to build chords, like drop 2 or locked hand or so what chord or everything. So Bill Evans. Also Chick Corea, but Chick Corea is playing some very modern things. I mean like a Bela Bartok or some influences of classical music from the 20th century. So. Herbie Hancock also the piano record, solo piano record. He's not playing too much, just playing, but also. So many of Keith Jarrett, yeah, also, yeah, of course. Karen Conter, you know Karen Conter, Keith Jarrett, solo piano, staircase. So.
I think it's like learning. I think you got to remember that he comes from a different country than ours. The language is different, but when we listen to music, that's a language too. So what Wojciech is, I think, trying to explain is he's trying to absorb all these influences, and then once he has those influences, it becomes his own language, speaking forth from what his experience. So all those things he puts together, and as you do too when you're playing. Sometimes it's more successful than others, or what I try to do. And the next thing you know, it all of a sudden is you. And you hear bits and pieces of other things, but still, it's you doing it. And that's a long journey. It's not something you can do overnight. That's what makes jazz so frustrating and so exciting. Because you want to do it right away. All of us are impatient. And the cool thing is, it's never over. I mean, you're never done. It's not like playing a sonata or a concerto, and you can always refine it and keep it going. But once you have the basic information, it's a matter of keeping it. In our situation, it's never the same. If we play Stella by Starlight again, which we could do again, it would be very different than what we just did. Maybe not. You never know. So that's the challenge.
Yeah, it depends on mood or
exactly. You just never know, and that's what makes it really hard for I think classical people to understand too. Because when I was working on classical saxophone, I had to try to play exactly what was there, and that was it, and that was cool. That challenge was great. But now the challenge is, I don't have to do that. Well, there's that freedom thing. But I have to have all this other information available to do that. And we keep working on that stuff, scales, chords, all that junk. But you have to have it, or you can't do it. You're lost. It's like going through a journey without a map. You need something on the map to get you there. Even a GPS, but that's... Anything else you want to ask?
How do you go about memorizing tunes? And then how do you retain everything you've learned in the past without it being
It
lost?
depends how long ago. Somebody says that memorizing is a process when you put two things together and I miss some words. Yeah. So memorizing is not like remember because I remember, but I remember because I connect this information or some picture of here or with something else. Yeah. And if you put together, it's deeper in your mind.
The association of ideas.
Yeah. So if I play something new, this it reminds me this chord progression reminds me this, and then it helped me to first understand, and then it was, and here then from the dominant or for the second level, and then okay. So like this.
It's again just like a language, because when you learn language, you learn a word at a time for a while, and then after that you put together a phrase, and the phrase relates to each other, and it starts building like that. And too often we want it all like this. We try to learn it all in one lump.
Or like this.
Yeah. We just like a little bit. So it's hard. You're learning tunes and you're remembering, but it's also harder for us non-pianists. You're a pianist kind of, but not really in the sense because a piano player has all those responsibilities, and we as a horn player have one line, and it's so hard to try to relate to something we're not doing. That's why it's important to sit at the piano and play the tune. But even at that, if you're not playing every day or every night, at least a couple times, 3 times a week, under pressure of people watching you or listening or enjoying it, it's not the same. When we grew up, it was different. Now it's really hard for you guys. There's so many things that are easier, like finding music and going on YouTube or whatever it is, finding that. But actually doing it, there's not as many places to do it. So it's really up to you to get together and form groups and play like he was talking about and just play, because that's where it happens. It's no fun. It's no fun playing by yourself in the practice room. I mean,
Also, if if I knew some standard, but I hadn't played it for a long time, sometimes I had to play it once or two choruses to clean, you know, my brain.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I do it like this. Okay, and now I again remember correctly. You know.
That's another tune, okay? How about B flat?
Blues B flat or tempo.
I don't know, we'll find out. No, let's not. hadn't talked about it. You know. So that's the great part about what we do, is just that we have fun playing. I mean, it's all kind of spontaneous, right?
Oh, exactly, yeah. Completely.
Completely. Anything else you want to add? We can go on a little longer if you want. Anything else you want to ask us, or John, or Ben, or Craig? Any questions? I'll give you $5 for a question. Maybe 10. I'll ask you a question.
I mean,
Yeah, go ahead, Kim.
I say, yeah, you definitely display 3 different styles of playing thus far. I can definitely tell that was totally different from the first 2 times you played.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about my kind of playing, because it's like this. I've been teaching in Katowice for 22 years already, and every student is asking me about different way. I mean, different kind of play. One, how to play like Oscar Peterson, and another how to play like him. So during these years, I had to learn how to learn about this different styles. That's why I mean, I can play like many this, but some elements of different ways of playing, like Oscar Peterson, Bill Evans, or Korea, or Jared, or so. Because I had to do that, because I was asking by different students, which want sometimes different things from you. I mean, as a teacher, yeah.
I think one of the things that maybe, I don't want to put words in Wojciech's mouth, but I think it's very simple. When you start teaching, some of you may already do that, but when you start teaching, that's when you start learning. Because it forces you, it encourages you, it mandates that you have to think about all the things that you worked on. And then the questions that come out, like, you have to reform it. It's like doing a solo. I mean, I think teaching is so much like improvisation, because there's no script. We're not reading a script. You don't do that. A good teacher does not do that. What they do is they trust their instincts, and they take the information given to them, and they adapt it to what they know, and then they have to think, all right, how do I solve this problem? Maybe it's not a problem. Maybe it's like, wow, you play really great. How do I help this person? They already play really well. What do I do? That's when it's really a challenge, because when it's someone who can't play, that's easy. I mean, that's, okay, do this, do that. But when someone comes in there and they really have skills, and most of you do, then how do you work with that? How do you give them the freedom to learn on their own, but guide them in a direction? So when you're teaching, it's almost like you're a therapist, where you're just kind of guiding someone like this. So they experience enough, and then they put it together, and then they go off. I mean, I think when you're asking about how to learn all the styles, I think that's what he's trying to say, is that when you're going through it, you have all that in your head. How do I get it out to explain it? And once you do that, that's when you learn it more yourself, because you have to assess what you already have inside you. Does that make sense? When you start teaching, it'll make complete sense. It's like, oh wow, I did this before. I heard him say this. I remember now. You know, it really, that is the key. Once you get to that level, even if it's the most basic student, it's amazing how much you learn.
Because my father was playing piano. I was here. I have almost.
Perfect pitch.
But on the piano. Yeah. So I heard what he's playing. He was playing pretty good, and I learned from him the chords. He sound really very good. And then I started to play like him, let's say, but I didn't realize what I'm playing. Where is this root? Where is with drop 2 or whatever? I played it. Sounded it's okay. But then students ask me, yeah, but if you play, it sounds good and play good. And when I play, it doesn't sound good. What to do? And I thought, oh, come on. Really? And so I have to realize what I'm doing to explain them how to play to sound good. And then so it teach me also how to teach.
You know, one of the things that we had a meeting the other day about different things, and I said 2 statements that I think are true about teaching. We teach as we've been taught. Think about that. We teach as we've been taught. So the teacher you're working with, if that person is real direct and dictatorial, then how do you know to do different? Or if somebody's open, it's how do you know to be more focused. So when you're working with a teacher, you got to think about, okay, what from that individual do you want to take or not take? Because there's always that. It's not one way. It's arrogant to think that one person has all that information, that all you need is from one person. That's totally arrogant. But you as an individual have a choice. I've been around some great teachers that I'm going, wow, that's what I want to do that. Can I do that? Like a great player. On the other hand, it's like, I think I could say it differently and get a better result than what they're doing. Because my way I communicate. Or you've been around somebody that's just not very good. Doesn't keep you engaged in the lesson. You can learn from that too by saying, I wish to avoid this. Or how can I enhance that to be a better teacher? So when you're working with something, you have to make all those judgments as you go along. Teaching is just like, it's a craft, it's an art. It's not just something to do because you want to make a buck.
I know two I think funny situation about people who really was good players, great players, but not good teachers. And the workshop, it was Polish saxophonist, no name, but Polish saxophonist, and he was making a workshop somewhere abroad, doesn't matter. And it was, now, his English was very poor. Now, I play, people listen, and he was playing really like very good. He finished, and now people play, I listen. Finished. It was one, and another one, the piano player was giving a workshop, and students came to him, Mr. X. When I am playing softly, first tempo, my arm is kind of aching and stiff. So don't play this. Was the answer. Teacher, so don't play. So, sometimes...
Lesson over.
Yeah, it's over. I said, funny.
It is.
Yeah, but it's true.
Oh, it's true. I've been to the master classes where the person will walk in and say, all right, what do you want to talk about? Like, well, we don't know. It's like, okay, and then so it's a journey, and the journey is a really great one. It's fun. You can do that. Let's play one more thing before you get out of here. In a sentimental mood.
What?
In a sentimental mood, yeah. When you start, okay.